What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Obviously, Giannis was out, but the Cavs blitzed the Bucks from the opening tip. They were up 22-2. And I want to focus in on the defensive end of the floor because here's the thing, even without Giannis, and obviously Giannis is an incredibly important player for the Bucks. He's the one fast guy really in that starting lineup, like truly like transcendently fast type of player, right? And so it's obviously going to hurt for him to not be out there. But there's enough offensive skill in that lineup for them to be decent, right? Especially on the offensive end of the floor. Like Dame is a transcendently great offensive player. Chris Middleton is a good, very, very good offensive player. Brook Lopez is a big man who brings enough offensive versatility to make scoring a possibility. Malik Beasley's been one of the best shooters in the league this year. Andre Jackson Jr. was the one kind of like offensive weak point in that lineup, but they literally could not generate a quality shot to save their lives to start this game. And so it came down to a bunch of specific matchup dynamics. So first of all, Isaac Okoro was on Damian Lillard, and he's one of the few players in the league that's big enough, or I should say bigger than Dame, but also quick enough to stay in front of him. And what they were doing is in any Brook Lopez action, they were hedging and recovering with Jared Allen, and Isaac Okoro would sprint and meet Dame at some point on his drives as Dame would try to beat the hedge with either a split or by dribbling around Jared Allen. And Isaac Okoro forced a couple of turnovers that way. There was a time where Dame just straight up tried to ISO Isaac Okoro early in the game, and he just chested him up, put his body in the way. And Dame and Chris Middleton in particular were playing a lot of grift basketball. They were kind of just dribbling into guys' chests and throwing junk up and trying to get fouls. We'll talk about the Bucks later, but they didn't really attack this game in any sort of serious manner. A lot of stuff coming out of Milwaukee despite their record that's kind of weird, and last night was definitely one of those games. But Isaac Okoro on Dame was the first major matchup. The second matchup, and I thought the one that was arguably the most impactful during this run, was Dean Wade on Chris Middleton. First of all, same thing. When Chris Middleton was attacking Dean Wade in isolation situations, Dean Wade was playing classic positional defense. He was sliding his feet, taking the contact in the chest, keeping his arms up high so that he doesn't get called for a foul, and he's got good size. And so he's forcing Chris to take tough shots over the top. And he was frustrating Chris as he was beating him to spots, and Chris was just trying to throw junk up at the rim to try to get fouls. But the big thing that Dean Wade was doing was his ability to switch. They were switching the Dame Middleton pick and roll and putting Dean Wade on Dame. Dean Wade got to stop sliding his feet on Dame. They were switching any sort of pick and roll with Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton. So then Dean Wade would just rotate onto Brook Lopez and just kind of battle. And they were doubling him out of that. There was a possession, to Donovan Mitchell's credit, who's having a great defensive season. Dean Wade got Lopez on a switch. Lopez backed him down on that left block, and Donovan Mitchell sprinted in, double teamed, got him to get rid of the basketball. Pass went right. It was only one pass away. Easy kick out to Malik Beasley. Donovan Mitchell is an elite athlete at the guard position, sprinted out like crazy and chased Malik Beasley off the line and forced him into a dribble pull-up jump shot. But that ability of Dean Wade to not be super easily scored on in a switch against a big or a guard was a really useful tool for the Cavs during that defensive effort that really frustrated the Milwaukee Bucks last night. And then they just were pushing in transition on every single stop. And Milwaukee's transition defense is awful. They let teams get out in transition over 17% of their possessions, which ranks dead last in the league according to Cleaning the Glass. But that's a good game plan from Cleveland. They were just running it down their throat every single time. A lot of bad floor balance from Milwaukee. There was a possession where at one point they had all 5 offensive players below the charge circle. And big shock, it ended up leading to, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was Max Strus getting a run out, a foul. But that was all it was. It was just incredible defense from all 5 guys, completely bought in, frustrating the Bucks, and then sprinting it down the other end in transition. And then a mix-in of some Donovan Mitchell shot making. He hit this ridiculous step back on Isaac Okoro where he damn near made him fall down. or not on Isaac Okoro, excuse me. It was on Andre Jackson Jr. I don't know. I'm mixing names up today. But it was a step back on Andre Jackson Jr. Made him nearly fall down that he knocked down. He had a pull-up three and pick and roll over the screen. He beat Malik Beasley in the mid-range with a pull-up jump shot. It was just that bit of shot making mixed in with running out for wide open layups and dunks, and then excellent defense. All of a sudden, they're up 22-2, and the Bucks quit, and the game is over. On the Bucks front, like again, it felt like one of those games where they realized Giannis was out, and they went into the game with no real belief that they were going to win. And you could see it in a bunch of different areas. Dame and Chris Middleton just dropping their shoulder into defenders' chests and then just trying to draw fouls by just throwing up weird shots. Like Dame was drawing multiple defenders at the ball screen, but just swinging the ball out of it, not really doing anything to try to compromise the defense in that situation. And then they were jogging back in transition. A lot of basic things too, like floor balance stuff where guys are, it just was incredibly sloppy. A basketball from the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, it's one of those ones that you just kind of crumple up and throw out. But again, like Milwaukee's got a really good record, but there's just some weirdness surrounding that team. I'm not sure what it is, but at the same time, I want to cut them the same slack that I've been cutting a lot of teams, which is this is the NBA in January. This is what it can be like sometimes. You're right smack in the middle of things. So you've been doing this for a long time and you still have a really long way to go. And I think that can go a long way towards just kind of like causing wildly oscillating levels of effort from team night to night. Right? You get a Boston team that beats the Timberwolves and then gets their ass kicked by the Bucks. The Bucks kick the shit out of the Celtics and then go get their ass kicked by the Cavs, right? Like it's just this weird dynamic where it's the oscillating effort that's primarily dictating whether or not a team, kind of comes out with the win on any given night in this time of year. So I want to cut the Bucks some slack. You just kind of crumple that one and throw away, but it definitely was a disappointing effort. Now, on the Cavs front, Evan Mobley went down after the Orlando game 18 games ago. Then they quickly drop 3 of their next 4, and then Darius Garland goes out of the lineup. And then everybody in the league's like, this is interesting. Like, we're not sure even if the Allen Mobley front court works in terms of the playoffs. It's just really difficult for them to score and pick and roll in that situation. You have 2 small guards in that lineup. Now you have Darius Garland and Evan Mobley out for a long time. The regular season to that point hadn't been that impressive from Cleveland. And so you're like, like this kind of felt like a teetering point. Like it was a teetering point where it might be one of those things where now's the time to kind of reconfigure, or are they going to kind of salvage these things? Nope, they salvaged things. They went 11-3 over their next 14 games since Darius Garland went out. 6th in offense and 3rd in defense. Most of their success comes off of similar stretches to what we saw last night against Milwaukee. They defend like crazy and they get out and run. As a matter of fact, they're only 24th in the NBA in half-court offense. So they're not really great at scoring. As a matter of fact, they're bad at scoring in the slow-down half-court environment. But they're 7th in fast break points per 100 possessions this season. They get out and run, and that bolsters them on the offensive end of the floor. But most importantly, they don't just run for the sake of running. There are a lot of teams that run out in transition and take bad shots. The Cavs do not do that. They run selectively when they see good opportunities for them to get great shots. They run off their defense in particular. They're not just playing with unnecessary pace, right? They're at 1.17 points per transition possession. That ranks 8th in terms of efficiency per possession among all NBA teams. That's excellent. Overall, Cleaning the Glass has this metric. It's a cool metric. They call it transition points added per 100 possessions. It's just a way to kind of like singularly capture your volume of transition and your efficiency into like one metric, right? Because there are a lot of teams that run in transition a ton, but they don't necessarily score. And then there are selective teams that run a lot or don't run as often, but when they do, they get layups and dunks, right? And those are the teams that are more efficient, right? And then there's a metric that Cleaning the Glass has that kind of combines all of that stuff. Well, for the Cavs, they rank 3rd in the league in that kind of combined metric, meaning they are the 3rd best transition offense in the NBA. So the question is, why is Cleveland's defense so successful? And the reality is really simple. It's complete and total buy-in down the lineup from everyone, including their star. Donovan Mitchell is flying around and helping recover situations. Dean Wade, we talked about earlier, is competing in switches against players bigger and smaller than him, and he's guarding wings well. Isaac Okoro and Max Strus are competing at the point of attack with physicality and relentless back pressure and just using their quickness and size, right? Okoro specifically is one of those guys. He has his offensive limitations, but he's just such a useful defensive player with his ability to guard the quick guards in a league with his size that can become a problem, right? And then Jared Allen, he's capable of switching, he's capable of dropping, he's capable of hedging. He's just a versatile defensive big. He kind of fits into that mold that I talk about in terms of team construct, where you want to have a defensive kind of fulcrum at the center position that can defend in multiple coverages. Otherwise, you become very matchup dependent, right? The defense is real too, regardless of opponent. As a matter of fact, they allow just 112.4 points per 100 possessions against the top 10 offenses in the league, which ranks number 1 in the NBA. Now, to be clear, they've been in an easier stretch of their schedule as of late, and things will get tougher, but they're playing some really good basketball. They're now going on the road to play 4 tough games. They're at Atlanta, at Orlando, at Milwaukee twice. Then they come home for the Clippers. And so we're going to find out really quickly how much of this is real for them, at least in terms of this particular group, obviously with Garland and Mobley still being out. Specifically, it's going to come down to it's going to come down to, can they get enough stops to get out and transition often enough to bolster their half-court offense? And then in the half-court, are they going to get enough shot making from guys like Donovan Mitchell, right? Like that's going to be what's going to carry them against these better opponents, because what's going to happen is specifically teams like Orlando, who has really big perimeter offensive players, are going to try to attack the smaller Cleveland perimeter defenders, right? The Clippers are going to space them out and test some of their other perimeter defensive players. And if they don't get as many stops, they're not going to be able to run as much, which is going to put a strain on their half-court offense. And they're at Milwaukee twice, and Milwaukee's going to want revenge. So those are going to be some tough games. If they can go 3-2 in those 5 games, that would be a huge win for this Cleveland Cavaliers team.